Hi, this is Wendy from HMO Success, and today's video is all about making sure you've got a really good snagging process so that any problems can be finished off before you start tenanting your HMO. And remember to subscribe and like this channel and register for updates so that you don't ever miss one of my videos again. If you're in the middle of a refurb process, you must remember that snagging is a core part of finishing off your project. Why is it so important? Well, a number of reasons. Number one, the last thing you need is tenants moving in and suddenly phoning up to report repairs or maintenance that are needed because the project didn't get finished off properly. Number two, you don't want to find out that suddenly you're faced with a hefty bill because all along the project, some of these snags haven't been dealt with earlier. And number three, if you do not deal with the snags at the end of the project, it will drift on and on and on and take much longer before it's ready and you won't be able to rent out your HMO. So on today's video, I want to share with you some key learnings that I've had from projects that I've run, and also to tell you how you can get a copy of my very detailed and comprehensive snagging checklist. So snagging, where do we begin? Well, the first thing to bear in mind is that if your project has been managed properly, then throughout the whole of the project, little snags should have been raised early. You want to test all the water, all the electricity, all the systems, even before you get to this point in the process. Now, snagging is usually done towards the end of the refurb project. You don't want to leave it right to the last minute because the builder may have another job that he's got to go on to. So a couple of weeks before you're due to finish is an ideal time. You want to try and do it when there isn't anybody else in the building. So often snagging is done at the weekend. You put the lights on in all the rooms so you can see all the defects, and remember to have your phone with you so you can take photos, because that evidence will really help when it comes to your communication with the builder. Now at this point you want to be using a comprehensive list, and later on you can get a copy of mine absolutely free. Use that list to make sure you check every single different detail in the room. So whether it's a light switch that isn't quite straight, a tile that the grout hasn't quite gone round the edges of, or caulking, which is where the joinery attaches to the wall, that hasn't been done right. All of these details need to be picked up. Now, once you've got your full list and you've got your photographic evidence, you need to sit down with the builder and go through all of those snags one by one, and give them the next couple of weeks to put those things right. Now, how do you incentivize a builder to do that? Well, the best way is through a retainer. I would suggest that you retain about 5% of the build cost, although that does depend on the size of the build. It might be that if you're doing a small, relatively inexpensive refurb, you just want to maybe keep back about £1,000. But any retainer will certainly be an incentive for a builder to finish off those little snags. And at this stage, they should not be major snags. As I say, if you've made sure that you've tested all the services, you've put on all the lights, switched on all the showers, turned on the washing machine, stuck on the kettle, plus a few other electrical implements, or appliances rather, that will tell you that all the services are working and running well. That should be done before you do the snagging. The snagging is really the final part before the handover, when you get all the certificates and the bits of paperwork from your builder. Now, once you've got that snagging list and you've gone through all those different items, and I'm going to share with you some of the common ones in a moment, what you need to do is sit down with the builder with the list and go through how you want those all to be repaired and corrected, and reassure him that once those are all done, you'll come and do a final check, and then you will sign it off, and then he will get his final payment. Assuming that there's nothing too big or too difficult, this should be fairly straightforward. But remember, it can be a source of conflict. And sometimes in projects, you have to do a bit of negotiation at the end to make sure that the builder is going to finish these snags off to your standards and to make sure that they fulfill the requirements of the contract. If you have produced a specification or a contract at the beginning of the project, this again shouldn't be too difficult. So make sure that you've followed all the correct process, which you can read about in my book if you haven't already got it. So what are the common minor snags that you might come across? Well, sometimes it's things like doors and windows not being painted correctly, around all the edges. Sometimes it's plaster that's still left on the PVC and needs to be cleaned off. It might be that doors don't fit correctly. Very important that you get your fire doors to fit snugly and that they close automatically with the door closers. Sometimes the heating system hasn't been flushed through. I would recommend that the heating and the lighting and the electrics and the water are all tested before you do the snags. It could be that sometimes the decor hasn't been finished off correctly, or some of the paintwork needs a bit more of a touch-up. Sockets and switches, these are ones worth checking because often they can be slightly loose or not quite straight. If you've got nail heads in plaster dry lining or in woodwork, sometimes those are not covered up and dealt with correctly. Kitchen cabinets, make sure that all of the kitchen cabinets are cleared out of all the rubbish. It's amazing how often builders decide to stick all their rubbish in a kitchen cupboard. Make sure they are cleared out of everything that is not needed anymore for the HMO, although do keep all copies of appliance instructions. Scratches or areas where perhaps somebody has dragged something through the property and made a mark, often on skirting boards. Again, decorative items, not too difficult to fix, but need to be done before you finish the HMO. Sometimes you can have a little bit of shrinkage on the plaster between skirtings and architraves and the walls. Water staining is another one worth looking out for. If you've got new windows or doors, make sure you've got all the keys to everything. Sometimes grouting, as I mentioned earlier, can be a little bit patchy. And taps is another one to check as well. Make sure they're fit correctly and they're not waggly. So if you would like to get a full, comprehensive, detailed list of snags that you can go around and check at your leisure, using all the advice I've given you today, then please download it here. And I'm going to put the link below the video so that if you want to download your own copy of my detailed comprehensive snagging checklist, you can do so. I hope your snagging goes well. And I know that by doing this, following this process, you will have a beautiful HMO that is ready to rent and will certainly minimise any call outs from tenants on repairs and will make your photographs pop with glory. I look forward to speaking to you soon.